When I see numbers, I see numerology always. I see a specific kind of embodiment always, because it always brings me into the cellular structure, and it always brings me into that heart math thing. You know, the energy that's being emitted doesn't lie. It's kind of like it's got a frequency, and that frequency can be measured on so many different levels, and that's where the numbers piece comes in. And then when we talk about numbers, it feels very masculine in nature, because it's very intentional and very pointed and very final. It's like a straight line, you know, a number feels like a very straight line. It's very masculine in nature. But when we look at the earth, and we look at basically the final components of the earth and the earth's expression, numbers is part of that, you know. When we're looking at ether, we're looking at infinity. When we're looking at earth, we're looking at more finite, but we're looking at finite where it comes into infinity, meaning that basically there's 70 trillion cells in a human body. But I'm saying there's 70 trillion cells in a human body, and that's what makes sense, right? It's kind of like, if I didn't have numbers to say that, I'd be like, oh, there's a lot of cells in the human body. And it's a whole other thing to say it like that, you know? But to bring it down into a point where it's measured, and I then can actually get an understanding of what that truly means, that's when the numbers come in. When it comes to numbers in the business, it's like the bloodline of the business, basically. It literally is, if you're the creator of the energetics of how your business flows, your numbers is literally the bloodline of that flow. It's the financial bloodline, and it's also the financial nutrients of the business. It's numbers will come out in things like social media as well. So it'll come out in how many people you're impacting, how many people you want to impact. It'll come out in things of like what you're extending as opposed to what you're receiving. Things like adverts will come out in things like that as well. So like if you're doing things like Facebook ads or something like that, that you want to be recompensed for what you're extending out. So what you're paying out, you want it to actually bring in dividends, you know, that kind of thing. So the numbers part is almost like the final bottom line and the foundation on which the whole business rests. And ultimately, when it comes to business, if we're not tending to the foundations of it, it doesn't necessarily tend to have longevity on its own. That's just the long and the short of it. So as much as we don't particularly like the numbers, or we don't think that the numbers are sexy or whatever, the thing is, it's like if we're not tending to them, it's a bit like the bloodline of the business. If we're not tending to and water, or you could say like it's a plant that needs watering. If you're not tending to it in that way, it doesn't sustain, unless you've actually found a way to have flow come through on a very more like donation-based, charitable-based, that kind of thing. And even then, you still have to have a way for that flow to come in, you know? You have to have a way for, and it will always come down to the sustenance level of the nutrients of the business, you know, the bloodline of the business. It will always come back down to that. And then as it comes into the bloodline of the business, it goes right into the base chakra, and then it goes into our capacity to stand, our capacity to support, our capacity to look after ourselves, our capacity to tend to our own nourishment and nutrition, you know? So numbers are, they hold a lot, right? They hold a lot. And I think one of the things that I have come to understand with this whole numbers thing is that basically us as light workers, as energy workers, as catalysts for expansion, as catalysts for healing and transformation, part of our work here is to elevate the frequency of money, you know, and I've sensed that for a very long time, and it's something that I've actually actively been kind of involved in. I've done workshops on it, you know. It's kind of like tending to the money from the point of view of how do we actually instill it with sacredness and divinity, you know. So that's where we're going to go, the sacredness